Next to me is an automotive icon, the Toyota Supra. Built in Japan from 1993 to 2002, this is the fourth generation Supra dubbed the A80. In fact, when anyone says the word Toyota Supra, this is the generation that comes to mind. Made famous for its incredible engine, the 2JZ, and of course its appearances in Fast and Furious, it quickly became one of the most desirable imports in the world. So much so that a clean manual Supra will set you back $100,000 or more. Think about that. A Toyota for more than $100,000. This specific Supra was imported from Japan, hence why the steering wheel is on the right side of the car, and hence why I've embarrassingly climbed into the left side of the car trying to drive it more times than I'd care to admit. But amazingly, the US version of the Supra is actually the more exciting one. I wish this happened more often. The A80 Supra came with two different engine options. There was a naturally aspirated inline-six dubbed the 2JZ GE and a twin turbocharged variant, the 2JZ GTE. T for turbocharged. Now in Japan, because of a gentleman's agreement, the 2JZ GTE only made 276 horsepower, but in the United States, it made 320 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. Truly impressive numbers for the time. Now weighing in at just 3,300 pounds, the A80 Supra could sprint from 0 to 60 in just 4.6 seconds and run the quarter mile in 13.1 seconds. For reference, the E36 M3, the BMW M3 of the time, ran 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds, and the quarter mile 2 seconds slower. The crazy part is 27 years later, the new generation Supra only makes 15 more horsepower than this one. Now, the A80 generation Supra uses a sequential turbocharged setup, meaning there's a smaller turbo that kicks in right off idle to reduce lag, and a larger turbocharger that kicks in around 4,000 RPM to add more power. Now, a big reason why the Toyota Supra is so popular amongst automotive enthusiasts is the tunability of the 2JZ engine. In fact, with stock internals, the 2JZ GTE can hold upwards of 800 horsepower to the wheels. That's thanks to an iron block, which is super sturdy, a forged steel crankshaft, and a fully closed deck, meaning you can have really high cylinder pressures and withstand very high RPMs. Now, with a built motor, the sky is the limit in terms of horsepower. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 horsepower, it really doesn't matter. Most people switch the twin turbocharged setup for a larger single turbocharger, and at the very upper echelon, Economy Racing built a 2JZ Supra to run the quarter mile in 5.9 seconds. 5.9 seconds. That is freaking ridiculous. Another part of the Supra's mass appeal, of course, is its looks. Now, this car has a super rare tandem widebody kit. It's actually the only one in the world designed like this. And if I'm honest, it looks good, but I do prefer the look of a stock Supra. It's classy, it's sleek, and the design is honestly timeless. I particularly love that front fascia with the kind of smiling but also aggressive front mouth where you can see the intercooler behind it, and of course that iconic rear wing that's actually missing in this case. I also love the taillights, and there's such cool little features like look at the mirrors. Another cool part about the Supra is that it had an optional removable Targa top. Now, this is the coupe, it doesn't have a removable top, but it's actually a really cool feature. Now, in 1996, for all US cars that were the turbocharged variant, it actually became a standard to have that removable Targa. However, like most Targas you're used to, let's say a Corvette, where you simply use quick releases, you can take it off really easily and put it in the back, the Supra is not quite that simple. In fact, it's complicated enough that in the center console, there's actually instructions on how to remove the Targa top. You actually have to use a tool and remove 5 screws, one at a time, and then place it in the back, which is quite difficult, and it definitely takes some time. So you gotta pre-plan it out, but being able to drop the top in the Supra is definitely a cool bonus. The interior of the Supra is very driver focused. The entire dash layout is pointed directly at the driver. To the right in a right-hand drive car, and to the left if you're in a left-hand drive car. Now, it's got some unique features. For one, this car doesn't have an airbag for the passenger seat. So it actually has two different glove boxes, which I've never seen in any other car. I also love the way the air vents are styled. Inside of the air vent itself, to close and open, it's got all these different blades that move in this really satisfying function. And when they close, it seems right. Now, we've got back seats in the rear of the Supra, but they're pretty much as useless as it gets. Almost to the point where I kind of wish they eliminated the rear seats and just made the trunk larger, because the trunk floor and size is actually really, really small. They did fix that, however, in the Mk4 Supra, eliminating those seats and making a larger trunk. You got a super simple instrument cluster with 3 very large dials. We've got a massive center-mounted tachometer. To the left of that, we've got the speedo, which in this case is in kilometers, so that'll be interesting on the road. And to the right, you've got the largest fuel gauge I've ever seen on any car. Like, if you run out of gas in this Supra, you're completely blind and probably shouldn't be driving. Well, what does the Supra like to drive? Let's find out, shall we? Behind the wheel of the Toyota Supra, this is the first time I've actually ever driven a Mk4 generation Supra. Honestly, people talk so much about building these cars, quarter-mile times, roll races, and the hype behind that nobody really talks about what it's actually like to drive and own one of these things. I honestly couldn't find all that much information online about what's it like behind the wheel of a Supra. So honestly, coming into this, I was completely blind. I didn't know what to expect. And honestly, it's a lot smoother and more relaxing than I was thinking. The steering is nice and light. It's not super tight like you'd expect in a hardcore sports car. The suspension doesn't ride super firm. It's honestly relaxing, and it feels like you could actually drive this car a really long distance, no problem at all. And at the end of the day, it is a Toyota. It is super reliable. You could put tons and tons of miles on this car if it's stock, trouble-free. Obviously, if you start going crazy with the power, it's gonna get less reliable. That's with any car. But I'm surprised how comfortable this car is to drive, honestly. Visibility is super great out the front and out the side. You've got a little bit of a blind spot back there, but not a problem at all. The biggest thing getting used to is the fact that this thing is a right-hand drive car and shifting with your left hand. It's kind of a wild experience, but I'm sure after some miles in this car, I'd get used to it eventually. But what's interesting is the shift throws are actually slightly at an angle. So first gear is all the way up and to the left, like it would be in a left-hand drive car, but you're just doing it with your left hand. You're not pulling it towards you, you're actually pushing it away from you, which is unique, but it's actually slightly at an angle. So first gear, you've got to kind of go down and to the right at this kind of interesting angle, and then up and to the right again for third gear. It takes a little bit getting used to, but the actual actuation of the shifter is really nice. It's smooth, it's confidence-inspiring, and getting it into gear is super easy. So in essentially stock form, let's see what this thing is like under boost. It's actually pretty quick, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was gonna feel underwhelmingly slow, but when the boost kicks in, 4,500 RPMs, this thing actually starts to rip pretty good, even by modern day standards, not just thinking that this car specifically is a 1994. But it's so awesome to imagine that it's really not that difficult to pump crazy power out of this engine. Most commonly, you switch the twin turbos for a single turbo, so you got a much bigger single turbo. You replace the intercoolers, the exhaust, the intake, some injectors, new fuel lines. You can run it on E85, and then boom, those mods alone, you're making 750 horsepower to the wheels, and you're spanking basically 90%, 80% of supercars, 99% of things on the road for not all that much extra money. I was gonna say for not that much money, but unfortunately these Supras cost a heck of a lot of money nowadays. But you know, as an investment, I don't really see these things ever going down. I think they're just gonna keep going up in value forever. So if you get one, you certainly don't have to worry about depreciation, because it's not going in that direction, that's for sure. Oh man. One of the best parts about the 2JZ, of course, is its sound, especially with a single turbo setup and anti-lag, two-step. It just sounds absolutely ridiculous. There is nothing else really on the planet that sounds like a two-stepping high horsepower Supra. But even with just an exhaust, no tune, nothing crazy, it's got a really nice exhaust note to it. And when you let off the gas, a little flutter from the blow-off valve. It feels special when you're driving this car. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just feels cool. And when you're driving this car, the amount of attention it gets is absolutely ridiculous. When I was filming exterior shots, a bunch of different people came up asking what it was. Some people asked if this is the new Supra. That was kind of surprising. And then on the road, I see people giving thumbs up in the opposite direction, people taking pictures and videos. This is such a well-loved, iconic car. You're not gonna get any hate if you're driving a Mk4 Supra, that's for dang sure. All right, guys, now I'm gonna show you what it's like to drive the Toyota Supra from a first-person point of view. Let's go. It's very interesting. There are so many similarities between the way this Mk4 Supra and the Mk5 Supra feel in the corners and in terms of their handling capabilities. Both of them feel like the suspension is a little bit too soft, but still make it around the corners confidently and quickly. It really is something that you could drive every day and have fun on the track all at the same time. Well, guys, what an absolute blast driving the Mk4 Supra. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next video.